Hello, this is Mark Denham, radio presenter, audio producer, podcaster, and voiceover. Today on the audio journey, we're looking at stereo effects. Now, we have a mono file to start with. That's wrong, you may say. No, we're okay. What we're going to do is we're going to use this mono file to generate stereo effects. So we'll just play through the mono file. If you watch the VU meter at the bottom, you'll see it's just one because it is a mono file.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Okay, so if you want to make that more stereo, if you're listening in headphones, for example, you could go in modulation and chorus and you could crank up these voices. And then if you have a listen now.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
You have a convoluted stereo-ish effect on a mono file. Okay, so that doesn't really work. What you could do, however, is you could start a new multi-track session, and then you could drag this in here. And if you watch now, although it's a mono file, watch the meters down here at the bottom.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
It's now converted it to a stereo output. So what you could do, first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put on a hard limiter on the master. And there will be a reason for that becomes apparent in a moment. I don't want any boosting. Sorry, let me go back to the default there. I don't want that as that. That's better. Okay, so that's just going to make sure that we don't clip, even though we are working in 32-bit floating point technology and clipping would be recoverable. We don't really want to clip. So we've got that done now on the master. Let's go back to track 1. We could now apply modulation and chorus, and we could go for 2 voices. We could go for 5 voices, and you can hear
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
A stereo effect on that. And that's all well and good, but it's not brilliant, is it? It's good, but you could do it a different way. I'm going to move it down onto track 2 now, which has
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Nothing in the effects rack at all now. And what I'm going to show you now is what you could do is you could pan this all the way over to the left. You could pan this all the way over to the right. And if you listen to it now.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Only on the left, take it down a track, and
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Only on the right. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to copy that down one. We will copy it down, and there you have
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Back in stereo. Now, how do we get a slightly bigger stereo effect? Well, what we could do is on track 2, we could add, let's say, a little bit of chorus. So go into the modulation and chorus, and there we are. We'll have the default 2-voice chorus on that. And on the right, we will have a different effect. We will have amplitude, we'll have modulation and flanger, and we'll just have the default. And now you can hear
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
2 separate effects, therefore you have a stereo effect. On just the left, you have the chorus, just the right, you have the flanger, but because they're playing out together, you have them playing in sync, and it sounds like a stereo effect.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
And again, what you could do, let's say you could route that down to a bus. We'll have a bus, a stereo bus, and we'll call that the voice bus. What you could then do, for example, is you could put on the voice bus, you could put on your own processing. So that's all now done as well, and that will affect both tracks.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
You could perhaps have on there, let's say, a bass roll-off, maybe. A quite drastic bass roll-off. We'll look at around about 200. So now it'll be different again.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
And you have a different effect there altogether. What we'll do now is we'll show you one other way that you can generate stereo without using any effects. So we will move that back up one. And what we're going to do now is this time we are going to copy both of those down now to another 2 tracks. So there we are. And we now have 4 different versions. Okay, now I'm zooming in on this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan that. Let's say minus 75, which is left 75, and I'll pan this right 75. I'll pan this left minus 40. I'll pan that right 40. So we have equal effects on both of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this just a little bit that way. And I'm going to just drag this one in a little bit and just move it. I want to go backwards this time, just a little bit. And then that one can go just a tiny little bit forward again. And if you listen now...
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
You have a stereo effect there because you have different pans on each of these. You have a 75, 75, so virtually all the way. You also have a 40 and a 40, which is closer to being in the middle. And I mean, you could do this like with many duplications and just change these pans so they are different each time. But each one is slightly out of alignment, therefore giving you a stereo effect.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
And that is the reason why down here we have a hard limiter, because we have quadrupled up these tracks now. And if you didn't have that hard limiter, you would definitely have clipping. One other thing that you could do here to boost this even further, if you go down to special and mastering, go back to the default here, you have the stereo widener. Drag it down to -100 and it gets as close to mono as it can. Drag it up to -100 and then your perception of width becomes even bigger.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
There you go. Stereo effects created. You can either do it simply using the chorus effect, which will create you a stereo effect. You could do it by panning left, panning right, putting different effects on each track, or without even using any effects at all, you could do it just by dragging each track slightly out of alignment from the other. And there's nothing to stop you now that you've done that from going in and adding a bit of flanger here, and you could add a bit of, let me have a think here. You could add in here, let's say, a bit of chorus on this one, and then let's have a listen. You've only affected 2 of the tracks, but you've already got the stereo effect.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Now you have a real stereo effect buzzing around in your ears as well. So there you go. That's how you create stereo effects in your production. If you're looking for something really wide, then do it the last way. Create many different versions, just slightly off alignment from each other. What you don't want is you don't want an echo rather than like a stereo effect. You don't want an echo. I'll just drag down that mastering and I'm going to add in a little bit of reverb onto here as well. And we'll just go 20%. And now what we'll do is we will go for a mix down of this session. And in a second, there we are. We have a nice bit of reverb tailing away at the end, and you've got a real stereo effect with reverb.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
Quite harsh on the reverb. Maybe could have done with being 15% on that reverb instead. Let me change that reverb. And then let's have just a little listen. We'll just cut down the reverb just a little because we have got quite a lot of stereo effect already going on. Close that off. Mix it down one final time.
The Breakfast Show with Mark Denham.
And there you go. It's done. All done. That's stereo effect for your audio productions. Check out markdenham.com. The entire audio journey series is there from the beginning to where we are now, including setting up or buying your equipment, setting up your recording space, choosing your recording space, right down to all of the different recording techniques, the production techniques as well. It's all on there. If you have any questions, go to the contact tab on markdenham.com and you can send me a message and I will get back to you. If you're on YouTube, please do subscribe, tick the notification bell as well. There are new versions or new episodes of the audio journey every week, couple of times a week. So if you tick the notification bell, you'll know when they're coming out. And finally, if you do have any questions and you are watching on YouTube, stick them in the comments below. I best go before my voice goes now. It's been a long day. But thank you very much for checking out this part of the audio journey. Go away, make something amazing.